I want you to just pause for a second. Whatever you're doing, just listen.
Okay.
Can you hear that? The hum of your refrigerator, maybe? The traffic outside,
I can hear my laptop fan.
right?
Yeah.
And can you feel the tag on the back of your shirt? Or is the light in the room just a little too bright?
Well, now that you mention it, yes. Sorry about that.
Exactly. But see, for most people, most of the time, the brain just,
Mm.
it pushes all that stuff into the background,
Mm.
puts it on mute so you can focus.
Sure.
But have you ever had one of those days where the background just refuses to stay in the background? Where the whole world feels kind of aggressive?
Oh, absolutely. It's that feeling where your brain is like a browser with 50 tabs open.
Yes.
And half of them are frozen. There's music playing from somewhere, but you can't find the source tab. And all the pop-up blockers are broken.
That is the perfect image.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling, that clogged filter, is exactly where we're going to live today.
I'm ready.
We are doing a deep dive into this really comprehensive guide from the Hey ASD editorial team. It's titled Yoga and Sensory Integration, a guide for finding calm and balance.
And I think we should flag something right at the top here. Hey, ACD, they create resources mainly for autistic adults and people with sensory processing disorder or SPD. But the tools they're talking about, how to manually regulate your nervous system when it's just firing on all cylinders, that's a skill every single person living in this chaotic modern world needs.
It's basically a user manual for your brain when the automatic settings just fail.
Exactly.
So our mission for this deep dive is to stop thinking about yoga as just stretching or a fitness thing.
Right.
And start looking at it as a piece of biotechnology, a way to use movement and breath and your environment to actually hack your own sensory processing.
And we're going to get into the neurology, too, because to fix the filter, you have to understand how the filter even works. You have to know the mechanics before you can be the mechanic.
Let's start right there. The filter. The guide calls sensory processing a sophisticated filter. I like to think of it as a bouncer at a nightclub in your head.
That's a great analogy. Yeah. The bouncer's job is to let the VIPs in, the relevant info, like, that car is about to hit me, or my boss is asking a question.
Important stuff.
And keep the riffraff out, the seam on my sock is twisted, or the fan is making a tiny clicking noise. When the bouncer's on the job, you don't even notice that stuff. You're regulated.
But when the bouncer goes on a smoke break,
It's chaos. Total chaos. And that is sensory overload. The guide defines it as when one or more of your senses just gets completely overstimulated.
and it's not just that things are annoying, it's a biological thing.
It's a full-on threat response. Your heart rate spikes, you can get headaches, your muscles tense up, you might feel this sudden intense irritability or anxiety.
Or you just shut down.
Yeah.
Guide mentions withdrawal. And I think we've all been there. You just can't process one more human voice.
It's like your system pulls the plug to save the hardware. But here's the kicker. And this is where the Hey ASD guide really goes deeper than your average wellness article. The data clogging up your filter isn't just coming from the 5 senses we all know,
Sight, sound, taste, touch, smell.
right? Those are the external ones. The guide argues that the hidden senses are actually the keys to getting regulated.
This was the part that blew my mind. The internal senses.
Yeah.
We're talking about the vestibular system and proprioception.
They sound like sci-fi terms,
They really do.
but they're happening inside you right now. Big words, but super essential concepts. Let's start with the vestibular system. This is basically your relationship with gravity.
This is the inner ear stuff, right?
Correct. It's this tiny, really intricate system in your inner ear that detects your head movement, gravity. It's your internal GPS. It tells you which way is up and how fast you're moving.
So when I spin around in a chair and then stop, but the room keeps moving,
Yeah.
that's my vestibular system glitching.
Precisely. Now imagine feeling that slight vertigo or just unsteadiness all the time. Or your brain isn't quite sure if you're upright or tilting. It creates this low-level constant anxiety because your brain just doesn't feel safe. If your GPS is broken, you can't relax.
That makes so much sense. If the floor feels slippery, of course you're going to be tense. Okay, and then there's proprioception.
Right.
I always struggle to explain this one. It's like knowing where your hand is without looking at your hand.
That is exactly it. It's body awareness. You have these little receptors in your muscles and joints sending signals to your brain saying the arm is bent or the feet are on the floor. It's how you can touch your nose with your eyes closed.
And the guide says that for a lot of neurodivergent people, or even just anyone who's really stressed out, these signals can get weak or noisy.
Right, and if your proprioception is off, you might feel physically clumsy, you bump into things, your brain doesn't know where your body ends and the world begins, so it just stays on high alert. It can't settle.
Okay, so this sets the stage perfectly for why yoga is the answer here.
Yeah.
Because if the problem is our internal GPS and body sensors are offline,
You need to reboot them.
you need a reboot. It's not about getting flexible, it's about calibration.
And that's why the guide calls yoga a multisensory experience.
Mhm.
It's not just a workout. You are actively feeding your brain reassuring data. You're telling it we are safe.
So let's break down the how.
Mm.
The guide says we can use yoga to sort of curate the sensory input.
Think about it. Your average day is just chaotic input. Sirens, emails, fluorescent lights.
Mm.
You have no control. But in a yoga practice, you control the variable.
You control the feel of the mat, the
You
sounds.
control the sounds, maybe soft music, or even total silence.
Hmm.
And you control the predictability. That seems to be a huge point in the guide.
Huge. Because anxiety just thrives on uncertainty.
But yoga, especially certain styles, it thrives on patterns.
The guide actually breaks down different styles based on what your nervous system needs, which I thought was so helpful. Because usually you just pick a class that fits your schedule, right?
Which can be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Let's say you're already overstimulated, the 50 browser tabs, the bouncer's gone.
Don't go to the power yoga class with loud pop music.
You will tip right over the edge. For that person, the guide says to try Hatha yoga.
Batha is the slower one, yeah.
Yes. Slower, you hold the poses longer. It's very deliberate. It gives your brain time to map your body, which is excellent for rebuilding that proprioception we were talking about.
Okay, what about vinyasa? The flow style.
Vinyasa is interesting. It's great for soothing through rhythm. You link your breath to the movement. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold forward. That repetition is incredibly soothing because it's predictable.
Your brain knows what's coming. The bouncer can relax.
It's almost hypnotic, in a good way.
And then there's Iyengar. I've always found that one a bit intense, very precise.
It is intense, but for a scattered mind, that precision is grounding. It uses all the props, blocks, straps, bolsters. It forces you to focus entirely on alignment.
You get worried about email when you're trying to rotate your pinky toe.
Exactly. It crowds out the chaos by demanding your full attention.
So it's a healthy distraction. What about Kundalini? That's the one with the chanting.
Yes, mantras and dynamic breathing. The chanting creates physical vibration in the body, which stimulates the vagus nerve. It's very good for releasing tension, but yeah, it can be intense for some.
So you pick your style. But then there's the medicine cabinet approach to the poses themselves. The guide splits them into 3 types: grounding, stimulating, and restorative.
I love this framework. It gives you so much agency. You're picking a tool for a specific job.
Okay, grounding. This is for when you feel anxious,
Ah.
flight.
Like you're about to float away. You need to maximize contact with the floor. You need stability. The classic one is mountain pose.
where you're just standing there.
It looks like that, but you're actively pressing your feet into the earth. You're engaging your legs. You're telling your vestibular system, here is the ground. We are steady.
Reconnecting the hardware.
Literally. Or child's pose. You're curled up, forehead on the mat. That pressure on the forehead is a direct signal to the nervous system that says, safe.
Okay, let's flip it. What if you're not anxious, but you're a sensory seeker? The person who's fidgety needs sensation.
This is so often misunderstood. We tell these people, a lot of times, kids to sit still. But their nervous system is screaming for input. It's hungry.
So you give it stimulating poses, like sun salutations.
Yes, dynamic, repetitive movement. Or balance poses like tree pose. Trying to balance on one leg fires up the vestibular system like crazy. It feeds that hunger for sensory data so the brain can finally settle.
It's like you have to run a high-energy dog so it doesn't chew the furniture.
It's a crude way to put it, but yeah, it organizes the chaos. It channels that seeking energy into something functional.
And finally, restorative poses, the rest and digest ones.
The ultimate off switch. Legs up the wall. It is exactly what it sounds like. You lie on your back, put your legs up a wall. It's a passive inversion. It lowers your heart rate, signals the parasympathetic nervous system to take over.
I could do that pose for an hour. Just hearing about it lowers my blood pressure.
But even that is enhanced by the other remote control the guide talks about. Pranayama, breath work.
If the poses are the hardware,
Breath is the software code. It is the only part of your autonomic nervous system, the part that runs your heartbeat, your digestion, that you can consciously control.
the guide calls it a manual override switch.
It is. When you're stressed, you breathe shallowly into your chest. That tells your brain, danger, run. By consciously shifting to deep belly breathing, you send the opposite signal, safe, relax.
They call out one specific technique for panic moments, 4-7-8 breathing.
This is the gold standard for a quick reset. Inhale for 4 counts, hold the breath for 7, and then a long, slow exhale for 8.
Why that specific count?
It's the ratio. The exhale is double the inhale. When you inhale, your heart rate speeds up a bit. When you exhale, it slows down. By making that exhale so long, you are physically forcing your heart rate to drop. It's biological math.
I tried it while I was reading, and it's actually harder than it sounds to control that exhale. It really forces you to focus.
It takes practice, but that control leads to another huge concept in the guide, interoception.
Okay.
We talked about proprioception, which is where am I? Interoception is how am I?
How am I is in my emotions.
Even more basic, hunger, thirst, heartbeat, the need to use the bathroom. A lot of people, and not just neurodivergent people, have poor interoception. They don't realize they're getting overwhelmed until they're already at a 10.
The hanger phenomenon. You don't know you're hungry until you're furious at everybody?
That's it, exactly. Yoga builds interoception. Through things like a body scan, where you mentally check in with every part of your body, you learn to read the dashboard indicators before the engine overheats.
The guide has this beautiful phrase for it. It says it creates a space between stimulus and response.
That is the holy grail. Instead of loud noise leads to immediate meltdown.
Right.
It becomes loud noise. Notice my chest is tight. Take a deep breath. Decide to put on headphones. That split second of observation changes everything.
It changes it from a reflex to a choice.
Correct. And that choice is where regulation lives.
I want to pivot to the last big piece here.
Yeah.
We've done the body, the breath. Now we have to do the room, the environment.
The container.
Because you can be a Zen master.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to relax under a strobe light, good luck.
Exactly. The guide is very specific about creating sensory-friendly spaces.
They mention this idea that comfort is a need, not a reward.
I actually stopped reading when I hit that sentence. It's so powerful. We treat comfort like a luxury. Oh, you can have the comfy chair after you finish your work.
Right.
But for someone with sensory differences, comfort is the baseline requirement for functioning. If the lights hurt or the chair hurts, they can't work. They can't learn.
So how do we build this space? They get into the details.
Visually, keep it simple. Clutter is just visual noise, soothing colors. But the props, that's where it gets really interesting. They talk about weighted blankets.
I've seen those everywhere now.
It's deep pressure stimulation. It mimics being hugged or swaddled. For someone with high anxiety, a weighted blanket during savasana, the final resting pose, can be the difference between fidgeting and actually relaxing.
It provides that physical boundary.
Exactly. They also mention textured mats for tactile feedback. If your proprioception is weak, a rough mat helps you feel where you're standing. It's more data for your brain.
And what about for kids? The guide has some really fun adaptations.
Yes, animal poses. Instead of telling a 6-year-old to do downward-facing dog,
You just say, be a dog.
which is way more fun. It engages their imagination, but it also tricks them into getting that vestibular input head down, hips up, that they might otherwise be scared of. It frames it as play.
And for kids who get anxious about what comes next, they suggest visual supports.
Illustrated cards with the poses.
Yeah.
A schedule. If I know that after dog comes cat and after cat comes tree, my anxiety just plummets. I don't have to guess.
There was one more term in this section I really want to unpack, stimming,
Ah, yes. Self-stimulatory behavior.
which society usually tells us to stop. Stop tapping your foot, stop rocking. But the guide takes a very different approach.
It frames rhythmic movement, like meditative walking, as a form of visual stimming or regulation. The idea is that stimming isn't bad behavior. It's a tool the body is using to try and fix its own filter.
So if you see someone pacing, they might actually be regulating.
Exactly. They're generating a rhythm to soothe their own nervous system. The guide suggests channeling it. If you need to pace, turn it into meditative walking. Match your breath to your step. Make it intentional.
It's that idea of agency again. You're not just reacting to an urge, you're using it.
It changes the story from something's wrong with me to my body is asking for something and I know how to give it what it needs.
Which is the perfect bridge to the collaboration between occupational therapy and yoga.
It's a dream team.
Yeah.
The occupational therapist is like the architect who understands the sensory diet and the neurology. The yoga instructor is the builder who knows the movement. When you put them together, you get something that's truly therapeutic.
So let's zoom out. We've gone from the biological bouncer in your brain to the hidden senses, the medicine cabinet of poses, and finally designing your own sanctuary.
It's a huge toolkit, and the beauty of it is you don't have to do it all. You can just start with the long exhale.
Or just legs up the wall.
Or just buying a dimmer switch for your lights. It's about realizing you aren't at the mercy of the noise.
You can conduct the symphony.
That was a beautiful way to put it. You can turn down the brass section and turn up the strings. You balance the mix.
Before I let you go, there was one phrase from the source material. It was actually tucked away in their product list, of all places. It just stuck with me. Stimming is sacred.
Stimming is sacred. It really stops you in your tracks, doesn't it?
It does. We spend so much energy trying to crush these impulses, to sit still, to look normal. We're constantly apologizing for our own bodies.
But what if we saw those impulses as wisdom? Your body knows what it needs to feel safe, way before your conscious mind catches up. That stim is your body trying to take care of you.
So here's the thought I want to leave you with. The next time you feel that urge to rock or pace or hum or just shake your hands out, what if you didn't suppress it?
What if, instead of fighting that energy, you channeled it?
Or just let it happen? How much energy would you save, and what could you do with that energy instead?
That is something to meditate on.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Stay balanced, everyone.